Amber from the Pinning Mama. Welcome to Silhouette Bootcamp Lesson 1. If you are joining us on YouTube, hop over to my blog, www.thepinningmama.com. The link is in the description to sign up for bootcamp, where we are doing mini lessons each week on how to use the Silhouette Studio software and learn basically how to design anything you can imagine. It's all free, and you can just hop over to my blog and sign up real quick to get all the notifications on it. And today's lesson is all about compound paths and grouping. And if you are anything like me, you kind of know what those are, but you don't really know the difference. And compound path is just a big fancy word that means pretty much the same thing as grouping. It took me a while to figure out the difference, but we're going to go over it today so you can understand kind of how and why you use each one and what they do. So to start, we're going to talk about grouping, and I have opened up this file. It's from the Hungry JPEGs Cute Graphics Pack, which is currently available, I think, for the month of September 2016. Anyways, I opened up this flower pack, and this comes with a bunch of different design pieces, as you can see right here. And each one is kind of an individual piece that you can move and manipulate, as you can see right there. But when you open it, they're all individual pieces, so you can just move them around. However, if you want to resize this, which you probably do because it probably doesn't just appear in exactly the size you need it, then you're going to want to group it together. So all we're going to do to group it is just, I use the select tool, the arrow tool, and I just drag it around the whole thing, and you can tell everything is selected because they have these really light boxes around it. You can make sure that you're not missing any pieces. Like you can see, even this little piece has a tiny little box around it by making sure they have the boxes. Once they're all selected, you can just right click and go to group. And you can notice all the separate boxes going away, and now you just have one bounding box on the outside, and it allows us to scale everything easily right together without any trouble. There's a couple places you can do group. My preference is that right click group. You can also find group down here in the menu. Let's see. Group and ungroup is this right here down at the very bottom left of your screen. You can also group under object group right here, or it shows you there is a keyboard command which is Command G, or on a PC that would be Control G. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. It's pretty easy and pretty straightforward on grouping. Another reason you might want to do group is if you are using text, and let's say I want to do my name like that. Let's make that bigger so it's easy to see. So I'm doing my name right here, and then say I just want to change or move a letter. You can notice by default it's all grouped together, but you can right click it and then press ungroup, and you'll notice now I have the ability to move all of those letters separately. So if I had one letter that was kind of not spaced exactly where I want it, or I just wanted to be able to place these on another design wherever I wanted them, then you can just ungroup your text like that. So that's another really common application of grouping and ungrouping. Let's talk for a minute now, back over here on the flowers, about grouping and ungrouping. So we talked about we wanted to group those together because we wanted to be able to scale them, size them, or maybe we want to, change kind of the look of it. But when we go to cut it, we obviously don't want to cut this all in the same color, because part of the beauty of this design is that it's different colored designs layered on top of each other. So then I would want to go back to it once I was done, right click, ungroup, and I would be able to, move each piece so that I could cut it separately on to whatever color I wanted to cut it on. So that is right there some of the main reasons we're going to use group and ungroup. And if you ever have a design and you just want to change part of that design, but it's acting as one piece, I would try to right click and ungroup as my first step. Now let's talk about compound paths. Compound paths are a little bit trickier to understand, and basically they really come from the world of graphic design, and more refer to how shapes interact together and how they're filled with color. So I really think the simplest example of this is like a donut, because what a donut is basically two circles, right? So I'm going to make two circles, a big one and a smaller one. Okay, now if I want to make a donut, my first thought would be like, all I need to do is just put this on top of this, right? Now I have a donut shape. But that's if you're just cutting this out on, say, like vinyl, then that's going to work, and it's going to cut this outer circle out, and it's going to cut this inner circle, and you're going to be left with a ring of whatever color vinyl or paper that you're cutting on. So that's great. But say you want this to be a print and cut project. Say you're having a donut birthday party, and in that donut birthday party, you're trying to make these little donut cupcake toppers that look like this. So what we're going to do is, let me show you this. I'm going to select that big one, because if we're going to make a donut cupcake topper, we want it to be donut colored, right? So I'm going to fill it in with a nice donut color. Well, you notice that that just filled in everything, because this middle circle right here is transparent. This doesn't look like a donut anymore. It just looks like a big donut colored blob with a circle on top. So what a compound path is going to do is going to tell the computer, basically the design program, that you want these two shapes to work together and act as one shape. So if I now select both of these shapes, and we know they're both selected again because it has the box around the smaller one, it has a box around the bigger one, I right click and I hit make compound path, look what happens. That middle of the donut goes transparent, because we had one smaller circle that was transparent, we had a larger circle that we filled in with color, and now we're telling it that we want that to work together as one shape. So you can see, kind of like when we were grouping, if I move them or scale them or change, it's going to work together, but it's also telling it that these are not independent. I don't want to be able to see transparently through this middle circle to that color. I want these to be one thing together. So I have a colored outer circle and I have that transparent inner circle that are working together. So when you're designing, you can keep that in mind. Most of the time when I am working with things, though, I find that I'm not necessarily designing and adding compound paths, but I'm actually releasing compound paths to edit things. So a really good example of this is, I'll just start a new window. I do this a lot. For example, let's do my name again. And I am going to, this time, we're going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to use this font I like called Black and White right here. And you notice that this is a distressed font. Well, distressed stuff doesn't always cut super great on the silhouette. So a lot of times I like to take out the distressing because I like the font, but I don't want all this, little stuff to cut. I'm going to go ahead, you don't have to do this step, but I'm going to go ahead and fill this in with colors just so y'all can see it a little bit better while I'm working with it. So you see how, let me make it a lighter color so you can see better. Okay, so you see how you have the font and the red cut lines are things that are going to cut, and then you have these little specks inside. Well, I already told you we could right click on this and we can ungroup. And now you see that I can, oops, it's still all together. Now you see I can move each of these individually, but I still can't, that's still one letter, and this little stress marks are still in. I still can't get to those to edit them, or to delete them in this case is what I want to do. If I right click, you can see I can't ungroup it again. There's nothing grouped together. And what's happening is the designer, when they made this, said that, hey, this M with these little distress marks, that's one shape. That's not, something I want to be able to see through, on top of my M. That is one shape I want to work together, just like the donut. I always want those distress marks to show transparent through this M, because that's part of the design. So they made that a compound path. So what I'm now going to have to do, I ungrouped it, but I'm also going to have to right click, and I'm going to have to release my compound path. I'm going to make this a little bigger just so it's easier to see. So now, once you see that, you see how when we release the compound path, these aren't working together anymore. These are now all individual pieces. So you have the M, and then you have the boxes around each of those little pieces on there. So now all I have to do is go in and click on them and delete them. This also works, say if you're doing some sort of person and you want their eyes to be bigger or smaller, or some sort of feature on, you have a boat design and you want the sails to be bigger. You can release that compound path and then just work with one individual element within a design that was designed to be all together. So releasing compound path is basically just a way that you can tell the design program kind of your plans on what you want to do with this thing you're designing. And mainly, if you are just cutting, you're probably going to be releasing compound paths more, but if you're actually making and creating designs, you might actually be making them more, or doing a print and cut project where you're actually printing colors and then cutting around the designs with your silhouette. Then you're going to be maybe making compound paths more. So hopefully that kind of revealed a little light on what the difference is between grouping and then compound paths, why you group, why you ungroup, why you make a compound path, or why you release a compound path. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, or better yet, go over to my blog post. I get to those comments a little bit more quickly than I do on YouTube. Again, the link is in the profile, and if you want more lessons on how to use your silhouette, some basic functions, how to become kind of a design rock star with it, go over there and look at the Lessons in Silhouette Bootcamp, sign up for my email list, and you will get all the notifications, and hopefully I'll see you again on lesson 2. Thanks, guys.